So my name's John Anton, I'm 57 years old. I was diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer at the age of 50. Started off in my early 30s with symptoms of what I thought was IBS, which was later diagnosed kind of in my early 30s as mild ulcerative colitis. And the symptoms of mild ulcerative colitis are similar, I guess, to the symptoms that you can get through bowel cancer. So from about sort of 32 odd onwards, I was having endoscopies probably every 4 years, where they would look for how the ulcerative colitis was coming along and making sure that nothing else was going along. Because I'd had ulcerative colitis for so long, it wasn't as much of a shock, I guess, as it might have been to some people whose symptoms rapidly onset over a short period of time. It was still a shock, but not a huge, massive shock. And so I was kind of quickly able to flip into, so what happens now? I guess in that instant you realise that your life is going to change. You feel that, I certainly felt that what I really wanted to find out at that point is what could be done to help treat it, how bad it was, what were my likely chances of going for a successful course of treatment. And so I was pretty keen, and I'd luckily been with my gastroenterologist for quite some years, so I could kind of have a free and open chat with him about what's what. And he said broadly that before anything else, before we get any other test results back, John, with your history of ulcerative colitis, I would recommend that you have the majority of your bowel removed, that we put a stoma in place, and that we keep your rectum for possible future reconstruction surgery. But because of the history of ulcerative colitis, there's not much point in leaving any of the bowel in there. And my attitude was, well, do whatever you need to do to get this sorted in whichever way you possibly can. I was put on what they called a Scott trial at that point in time, so this was 2011, and I had oxaliplatin or oxaplatin, I can't remember what it's actually called, based chemotherapy, which is a real nasty one. Peripheral neuropathy, you have to wear a hat, gloves, coat indoors. You can't take a cold can of Coke out the fridge without feeling like you've been electrocuted. You're nauseous. Oh, it's horrible. The primary side effect was having a stoma, which is a pretty new and unique thing to have to live with. And the stoma nurses at the hospital area in which I went to in London were absolutely fantastic. It couldn't be more helpful. They'd try one stoma bag. If that didn't work, they'd try a different kind. They'd try one barrier spray. If that didn't work, they'd try a different kind. So that was really good. Got to the end of the year, and I wanted to pursue the option of J-pouch reconstruction surgery. And so went back to see my surgeon. He tried to talk me out of it because it's fairly invasive surgery, but said that if I wanted to go ahead, he'd happy to support me, but I'd need to have a scan just to make sure everything had settled down. Had a scan. Went to see my oncologist so he could tell me how everything had settled down. And I went to see him just thinking, we're just going to be talking about whether I'm a candidate for reconstruction or not. And again, the grim face, where he told me that unfortunately they'd discovered a cricket ball sized tumour at the end of my liver. And obviously J-pouch reconstruction was out of the question, and now they'd have to think about a treatment path for this particular metastasis, this spread of cancer to my liver. It was far more of a shock, I think, than the initial diagnosis. Plus the fact that, psychologically you think, oh my goodness, it spread to my liver. That is quite a serious, life-changing, life-threatening development in the disease. So it was far more of a shock than the original diagnosis with the tumour in my bowel. I had the surgery, which thankfully was successful. I had a few post-surgery issues, which had nothing to do with the cancer itself. It was just to do with the fact that my wound didn't heal as well and as quickly as it might have done, and certainly not as well and as quickly as it did with my bowel surgery. So I had to go back and have chest drains put in and liver drains put in and all that kind of stuff. But eventually all that sorted itself out. And then I was still on 3 monthly scans, and about a year later I went back on the result of my 3 monthly scan to be told that I had yet another metastasis spread into, this time it was a much smaller tumour, but it was in a much nastier place to get at. And it was decided through consultation between my oncologist and my surgeon that it wasn't at this point suitable for surgery. But the scans that took place immediately and then 3 months after the radiotherapy treatment showed that the tumour had been dealt with, and showed no recurrence of disease anywhere else. So it just went to show that the treatment they decided to do did what it was supposed to do. Once you've had cancer spread away from its primary to other areas of your body, and certainly when that's happened twice, you always feel like you're living with cancer. You always feel that even though my last scan results showed no evidence of recurrence of disease, there's no guarantee that the next scan results will do the same. If I had a friend who was just diagnosed, I think my first piece of advice would be for them to get as involved as much as they possibly can in their treatment path. You know, I've got two lovely kids. I would love to, make sure that I stick around long enough to see them start their own families in due course, and to see those kids' lives, grow and develop as we've always hoped, and we always would hope for our children. I've known too many people who've been through this and other forms of this horrible disease, not be around to see that happen with their children, and I think that's what keeps me going.